Okay, so now comes the fun time of actually cutting our giant courthouse steps in half. And the way that we're going to do that is you're just going to go from diagonal to diagonal. And you want to make sure that you're going to come through the center of these blocks, of the center block for sure. Because remember, we are adding these onto our 9-patch quilt center that we just finished. So I'm going to have my able-bodied assistant, my husband Izzy, help me with this. Okay, so this is my husband Izzy, and he has got he actually has a giant square. This is actually it's a sheetrock uh, ruler, and so what you're going to do is you're going to take this and you're going to go from point to point. All right. Now, truthfully, in my perfect world, this would be, which is that's pretty close. Okay, can you kind of just lean back there? All right. So what you're shooting for is to go from corner up here to corner. Now, needless to say, this is a design wall. It's not a cutting surface. So we're going to actually, I'm going to take and draw a chalk line across so that I can take it to my table and actually cut it. I do want to remind you, though, that once this baby is cut on the diagonal, this is now on the bias. So you really want to be very careful when you are working with this. You don't want to manhandle it a bunch because bias stretches. And our whole goal of this is to make sure that this fits on the sides of our center quilt that we have already finished. So this is critical. You have to be very careful. The other thing that you want to remember is whatever you are using to draw that line, give it enough space that it is actually cutting from corner to corner and not offset somewhat. So when I put my chalk liner here, I need to move up just a hair. And then we're just going to draw. I don't know why I'm, oh, there we go. Just keep drawing. And just to let you know, I'm really kind of pleased because my lines are actually coming through the corners of my rows here, that is a hooray. All right. So I don't think you can see the chalk line, but we've got a really nice chalk line that's going across here. So I'm going to take that one and I'm going to cut on the chalk line, and then that way it's going to give me right where it needs to be cut. But we're going to show you one more time because we have one more of these guys to cut. So just be very careful with this one because you don't want to rub your chalk off. Let me check this in the.
It doesn't matter which direction, right?
No, it doesn't matter.
Besides, I was just gonna
Speak up.
say, well, I was just gonna say that if you put your line on the diagonal here and it's off slightly, you might check it the
Yes.
other direction and choose the one that lines up the best, is what I was gonna say.
Well, and that's perfect because there's always issues. We're not perfect people, which I have to remind myself of that frequently. And so you want to make sure that you're going to get that to come as close to your points as possible. All right, so let's just see how it goes, and we'll go from there. Okay. Well, let's look at the other way and see. All right, let's go this way and see what happens. Okay. Okay, so here's the deal. This one's off slightly. So we get to decide, because we're actually looking at it, which side is going to give us the best result. So what do you think, babe? Do you think this one's closer? All right, so now we're just going to draw our line again. All right, so now we've got our line drawn, and now I'm going to go and cut these, and then we're going to come back and we're going to put them onto our center. Okay, so here is your next assignment. Once you've cut your giant courthouse steps in half, then you're going to set your quilt top on point, and these 4 triangles are going to go on the sides, okay? I want to remind you all that you're going to have, or you need to have, about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more, on your points, okay? Because remember, we're going to fold that over and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance to put our sides together. And so this cannot come out right at the edge. It's got to have a hangover to allow for that 1/4 inch seam allowance on your large triangles. So you definitely want to make sure that you have that about 1/4 of an inch, maybe even 3/8 if that's what you've got. That is what you're shooting for, okay? Again, I want to remind you, this edge that we have now cut diagonally across our giant courthouse steps is now a bias edge. And bias edges are very sensitive to being pulled and moved around a bunch. So my best suggestion to you is this. Once you have cut these and gotten them laid out beside your larger center, you want to get them sewn on as quickly as possible, because the more you play with these, the stretchier they're going to become, and then they're not going to fit like they need to. And we don't want that to cause problems for you. So maybe a suggestion that I have before you actually cut these is get your spray starch and spray starch your courthouse steps real well and then press them. And that's going to give them a little bit extra body that you need to kind of protect that fabric from shifting a bunch. So that would be my one tip for working with this. But like I said, once you've cut those, get them attached to your center square as soon as you can, and then that'll be a really good thing. So this is your homework for this week. You got a lot to do. Some of you I know have already gotten your center squares put together, and you may have already attached your 3 outer borders, but this is going to be what you have to get done for this week. And then we'll come back in 2 weeks and we will actually get your last part of the quilt done. So happy stitching, everybody.